Today we're going to talk all about Kantra the Cyclone. Hey, welcome! I'm LeilaFox. Today's YouTube video lore story is going to be for Kantra the Cyclone. She's a legendary barbarian champ for Raid Shadow Legends. Now, her story is really interesting because what you're going to find with her is she actually didn't start out as a barbarian. She actually came from another faction and was kind of adopted in, which is really interesting considering the barbarian faction as a whole. And let's check out their lore first. The barbarians of Harkhorn are opportunists, ever eager to offer their mercenary services to the highest bidder. When the servants of the corruption first came from the east with their dragon, they quickly made a pact granting them control of the region they now can patrol as the Deadlands. So it's very interesting that they say that barbarians are mercenaries, eager for the highest bidder. So how is it that they take somebody from a completely different faction and let them become a barbarian? Let's check out Kantra's story from the Tellarian Lore Book of Champions. Boisterous and jovial, Kantra, nicknamed Cyclone for her wild fighting technique, is among the most renowned mercenaries in Arabia. Though young, she had seen much in her life, and her origins inspired many a minstrel to compose ballads and songs of various degrees of propriety. For while she looks, fights, and behaves like a barbarian from the east, Kantra is not, in fact, one of them. She was born to a small, destitute noble family in southern Tillshire. Her father, a dishonorable and greedy man, was largely to blame for the family's troubles. His gambling habits quickly saw debts mount beyond what even a noble can manage, and he hoped that a suitable marriage would help him handle loans. All that remained was ensuring his daughter would be proper and obedient enough to accept whatever old moneybag offered the most for her beauty. Kantra, as it often goes in these tales, would have none of it. She was always a free spirit, inspired by legends of warrior queens and noble knights, eager to learn the art of the blade. Though her father forbade it, the young noble sought out every opportunity that her backwater little town could provide, which were few and far in between. That could not go on forever. When tension finally erupted in violent conflict, Kantra fled her home and her father's abuses. In retrospect, it was an unwise decision that could have led to her death. But fortune smiled upon her, and Kantra's path crossed that of a barbarian mercenary band. It comprised warriors born to the same clan, whose honor meant more to them than the ransom a high-born captive could provide. They took Kantra in, taught her to fight, taught her to live as free as the spirits of the wind. Thus, the would-be warrior cast aside the trappings of her old life and embraced her adoptive culture with enthusiasm that never failed to amuse her mentors. She grew up strong, willful, always eager for a challenge, and far too keen on punching well over her head. One such scrap nearly cost Kantra her life. She picked a fight with a gaggle of orcs sellswords over some minor insult one of those drunken louts uttered. By the end of it, the tavern was trashed. Most orcs were dead or scattered into the town, and Kantra was down one eye. She was forced to flee before the insulted thugs had a chance to gather more of their friends to avenge their humiliation at the hands of the brash young human. Now, many stories of heroes' origins will speak of how a brush with death teaches an arrogant warrior restraint and respect. For good or ill, Kantra is nothing like those heroes. She remains as foul-mouthed, as haughty, and as wild as ever, and the fight that cost her an eye is one of her favorite bragging subjects, rather than a cautionary tale for the young. Albeit, in fairness, Kantra's skills grew tenfold since that day, and she had bested countless challengers. Certainly enough to solidify her reputation. And while it is a dangerous life she leads, always walking on a razor's edge, always risking everything for the sake of excitement or pride, Kantra relishes every moment. Indeed, why would she change when a life of high adventure, full of dangers and glory, is more intoxicating than the finest Arabian wine? Alright, that was the story for Kantra, and what I did like too is they did add some elements of humor in there, because when we do look at Kantra, she is missing an eye. So they talk about how she gets into a scrap with a bunch of orcs, how she loses her eye in there, and she still keeps it as one of her favorite stories to share. So initially we hear that Kantra she's from a family where her dad pretty much wants to sell her off and marry her off to the highest bidder, and she's not gonna have that. So she ends up running away, and she ends up finding these barbarians, which interestingly enough, they take her in, they teach her to fight. So the lore does say that they're very eager opportunists, which makes me think that they saw something in her, that otherwise they wouldn't have just taken in a stranger and taught them otherwise, as they probably knew. They probably knew she had some heart, she had some drive, and that she probably would be a pretty good warrior as well. I would love to know what you think for the story for Kantra the Cyclone. Leave me some comments down below, and thanks for watching. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, check out some more videos up here in the playlist on the top right.